Hello learners, welcome to this interactive teleconferencing session on how to evaluate development programs. This program is meant for two program students. One is Master of Arts in Development Studies, MADVS, and PG Diploma in Urban Planning and Development, PGDUPDL. Dear learners, when you see the curriculum of MADVS, we have two courses, one in first year MDV 106 Research Methodology, and in second year we have MDVP 117 which is a project work. And in PGDUPDL curriculum we have MEDS 44 which is monitoring and evaluation of projects and programs, and we have MEDSP 45 project work. The current session, how to evaluate development programs, deals with all these four courses. A thorough understanding of the theoretical concepts behind evaluation of development programs will help you to master in monitoring, evaluation and impact assessment of development programs. The question is, when we are discussing about how to evaluate development programs or project, before going into that, let us see the meaning of evaluation. Evaluation is assessing as systematically and objectively as possible an ongoing or completed program or project about their different parameters like relevance, effectiveness, efficiency, impact, sustainability and replicability. These are some of the indicators. Even you can add n number of indicators on evaluation of the programs and projects depending on the objectives. And there is one more issue: when you are evaluating a program on some indicators, they are stated criteria should be there and at a point of time. If you recollect the definition, it is about an ongoing or a completed program evaluation. Ongoing means it is a midterm evaluation. That means the time of evaluation is at the middle of the program or project. When we say that it is at the end of the program or at the end of the project, then the time period is after completing the project, then we can say that it is a summative evaluation. Therefore, we need to take care of indicators when we are evaluating a program or project as per the objectives of the program or project against stated criteria and at a point of time. Then the question is, what is the need for evaluation? When we are doing development programs and projects, the development professionals' primary responsibility is to complete the program planning cycle. Then the question is, what are different stages involved in program planning? The first is the program formulation itself. As a development professional, you are involved in formulation of a development program or a project. After formulation, then you will implement it. Formulation, then implementation, and the third phase is the evaluation. The evaluation is related to the topic now that we are discussing. So, as a development professional, you have the responsibility of formulating a development program or a project, and in the second stage, you will implement it, and in the third stage, you will evaluate. Then the point of how to evaluate development programs and project comes. Then when you take up the program planning cycle, then as a development professional, you need to implement the program planning cycle with efficiency, effectiveness, accountability and resource allocation. Resource allocation broadly are of two types. One is allocation of time resources and allocation of human resources. And the third, another important dimension is the monetary resources allocation. So as a program planning professional, as a development professional, you need to implement program planning cycle in more effective way. Then often the question is why we should conduct the program evaluation or a project evaluation. All programs or projects are funded by some funding agencies. Some funding agency is giving money to conduct the program or to implement a project. Always the funding agency asks the project implementers or program planners or development professionals, we give a lot of money, what you are doing with that money? Our program effective and productive, why should we continue to fund? Because program is a continuous process. Many times long-term programs, they run up to 5 years, 10 years. So year after year, funding agencies, they release the money. Then they will ask us the question, why should we continue to fund the program? Then how will you improve ineffective program? Sometimes program may be ineffective, and through evaluation maybe we can find out the ways and means and how to improve ineffective programs. Sometimes we may have to terminate the programs also. These are some of the questions that funding agencies usually ask the program implementers or the project implementers. For example, if you see, Ministry of Urban Development is funding smart cities. They identified smart cities across the country and they allocated about 500 crore rupees. 300 crore rupees they are giving immediately in the first year, and in the next 1 year, the next 1 year they are releasing 100 crores each. Before releasing the next year grant, they will ask all these questions. What did you do with this money? 200 crores, 300 crores released in the first year, so that based on the performance report, they will release the second year's money. Evaluation provides us answers to these questions and provides us empirical evidence so that we can present before the funding agency that we did this works with this money, and this is the efficiency of this program, and of course these are the problems involved, and these are our plans to implement the program more effectively, systematically in the coming days. So just to repeat, program planning cycle has 3 phases: program formulation, program implementation, and the third one is evaluation. And as a development professional, we should have the competency to evaluate development programs and projects. Therefore, we need to understand different evaluation methods, techniques, and approaches so that you can become an effective program evaluator. Then the next question is, often we use the term appraisal, monitoring, evaluation, and impact assessment. Many times we use these terms either misnomerly or synonymously, but there are huge differences between these terms: appraisal, monitoring, evaluation, and impact assessment. Broadly, appraisal is before project or program activity. During the entire program, monitoring takes place. Evaluation is at a slot of time, maybe a midterm evaluation at the middle of the project or at the end. We call it as summative evaluation at the end of the project, and sometimes it may be even after a time period after completing the program, that we can call as impact evaluation. So evaluation is at the middle of the project or program and at the end, and the last one is impact assessment, at maybe to see the outcomes. What are the long-term outcomes of these programs or projects? Let us examine one by one. What do we mean by appraisal? A program appraisal is a critical examination of the program proposal itself. As a program implementer, as a development professional, we submit our proposal to the funding agency. Then funding agency critically examine our program proposal, normally before implementation and funding, with respect to several parameters, depending on the objectives of the funding agency, depending on the nature of work of the implementing agency, and maybe at the national priorities at macro level, and maybe state, district level priorities at micro level. For example, economic viability. Any funding agency will see the economic viability of the program or project. For example, what will be the next course of action when funding agency withdraws the funding? Economically, whether the program is viable or not. They measure in terms of sustainability. So before funding agency, they see economically whether this program is viable or not, whether it generates some money so that it will be self-sustainable or not, and when we withdraw the funding, what is the sustainability aspect of this program or project. Second is technical feasibility. We may have money, we may have human resources, but is it technically feasible? Then they see the technical viability of the project or program and they submit a report. And social desirability. For example, money is available, human resources are available, but whether the project is socially desirable or not. Sometime funding agency, they need to take a decision, even if technically, if the project is at the midway, and financially even if it is not viable, keeping in view of the social dimensions, keeping in view of the economic dimensions, keeping in view of the sustainability dimensions, sometimes environmental dimensions also into account, and they fund the projects even if they are economically not viable. So it is not necessary that always they see economic feasibility of the project in terms of benefit cost ratios, how much money that we are spending and how much money that we are getting back. When project is environmentally sustainable, when the project is socially desirable, then usually funding agencies, they set aside the economic viability issues and they fund the projects. So this is broadly about appraisal. That means appraisal is primarily a pre-program or a pre-project activity. Then the question is monitoring and evaluation. There are huge differences between, let us see briefly the differences. As I said, monitoring is a continuous activity. It starts with the program beginning and it ends with the program. When the program is ended, then monitoring also stops. Whereas evaluation is a one-shot operation. Evaluation is a one-shot operation which takes place either at the midway, we call it as a midterm appraisal, and even when the program is in its formative stage, we can conduct a formative evaluation. For example, in Indira Gandhi National Open University, we conducted a formative evaluation of Gandhara program. Then at the end of the program or project, if we conduct, we call it as a summative evaluation, and required for, what is required? Monitoring is required for immediate use or mid-course corrections. Why we should do monitoring? It is required for immediate use, whereas evaluation is for future planning. Because we invested considerable resources, both human as well as financial. So in future, how to improve this program in a better way, how to implement this program in a better way in some other location, then the evaluation will help us for future planning or for replication or for expansion of the program in a bigger way. Then monitoring is done usually by the program implementer or project implementer, whereas evaluation can be done both by internal as well as external, but it is advisable to have external evaluation to have more reliability and validity of the findings. Monitoring is quick. It covers all the units because we need to monitor entire operations of a program or a project, whereas evaluation takes sample. Evaluation takes sample. It covers in depth about a sample. Then it draws some generalization. Then monitoring is a correcting or managing mechanism, whereas evaluation is critically it is a learning process, so that from our mistakes we learn and so that we can avoid those mistakes when we are expanding our program or replicating our program. Monitoring is a symptomatic and it is an early warning system, whereas evaluation is basically it is diagnostic in nature. Having seen the differences between appraisal, monitoring and evaluation, let us examine what do we mean by impact assessment. Basically, appraisal, monitoring and evaluation, they focus on the processes involved in the program. They basically focus on processes involved in the program and the results of the program, the direct results of the program. But building on these appraisal results, monitoring results and evaluation results, impact assessment focuses on long-term benefits and wider ranging changes beyond the immediate use of the program. So impact assessment. So in summary, appraisal is pre-project activity or pre-program activity, monitoring is during the program activity, evaluation is at the middle of the program or at the end of the program activity, and impact assessment is a long-term activity after completing of the program, maybe after 2 years, 3 years and 5 years and so on and so forth. Then what are different types of evaluation? What are different techniques of evaluation? Let us classify them in terms of stage. When the program is in its planning stage, what are the different evaluation types that we usually follow? For example, a needs assessment. When we are formulating a program, we conduct a needs assessment or a feasibility study or a baseline study. Why should we conduct a needs assessment study? Whether is there any need for this program or not? If there is a need, what are the felt needs, unfelt needs, and what resources are required, and what more the participation of the stakeholders into this program, how to invite them. So need assessment helps us to bring out all these issues when the program is in planning stage. Coming to the feasibility studies, whether the program is technically, in order to take it forward, how to go about it, is it possible in this way or in the other way. And in case of baseline studies, it is basically used to compare the program results at the end of the program. We implemented program or a project, and unless we have a baseline data, we cannot compare. We call it as a control, maybe control sampling or a data before implementation of the program, then this will be used to compare. Usually in evaluation at planning stage, when we are conducting needs assessment, feasibility studies or baseline studies, what are the questions, evaluation questions that usually we ask? For example, what are the felt and unfelt needs of this population in this area? Who are the basic stakeholders of this program? Do they fit into the program objectives or not? Can program address these needs? And is the program feasible, maybe socially, economically, and financially, or else environmentally? Then the tools and techniques includes, we can imply a survey, we can go for a focus group discussion, we can go for a content analysis or econometric analysis and benefit cost analysis, etc. So these are the evaluation types at the program planning stage. What are the evaluation tools and techniques at the implementation stage? Program is formulated with needs assessment, feasibility study, and some baseline data. Now we are implementing the program, and what are the different types of evaluation? While implementing, if we conduct an evaluation at the middle of the program, we call it as a midterm or a formative evaluation, and when we conduct it at the end, we call it as summative. So in implementation stage, we conduct a formative evaluation. In the formative evaluation, the questions usually we ask is the program meeting its objective or intended outcomes? Before formulating the program, we formulated the objectives and we expected some outcomes. In the midterm evaluation or in the formative evaluation, we ask this question whether the program is meeting the intended objectives or outcomes. Are beneficiaries satisfied with the program? If they are not satisfied, we can find out why they are not satisfied so that we can implement some mid-course corrections. Usually the tools and techniques are, we use the monitoring reports for our midterm evaluation. We use the technology adoption pattern. For example, if the program is related to promoting a technology in agriculture development, then we can go for technology adoption pattern, and knowledge, attitude, skill changes among the beneficiaries and non-beneficiaries. So these are some of the evaluation types and techniques at the implementation stage. And at the conclusion stage, when the program reaches the end point, usually we conduct a summative evaluation. We call it as summative evaluation. Then the questions, the evaluation questions that we ask includes, are needs addressed? The needs are addressed or not? Have the desired outcomes have been achieved or not? And what is the cost effectiveness of the program? The tools and techniques includes pre and post program data comparison. We have a baseline data at the program formulation stage, and now we have summative evaluation data. We compare both these. Maybe by applying a t-test, we can see whether the results are significant or not. Then the other tool is the economic analysis. For instance, what was the economic condition before implementing this program? For instance, what was the daily income of the stakeholders that time? And at the end of the program, what is the income now? The difference is, you can give, this is what you call the difference in income because of this program or a project. Then the longitudinal evaluation is, it is a repeat evaluation to study sustainability of outcomes. In any program or projects, three types of inputs are there: inputs, outputs, and outcomes. In longitudinal evaluation, our focus is on to see the sustainability of the outcomes. Then the question is, who should conduct the evaluation? We discussed during the appraisal, monitoring, evaluation, impact assessment differences time, who should conduct the evaluation. There are internal evaluators and external evaluators. We can conduct program evaluation either by the internal agency or by the external agency. But for both of them, we have advantages and disadvantages. Let us see the internal program evaluation by the internal people. What are the advantages? Since the people involved in program formulation themselves are conducting the evaluation, they know the familiarity with the program and project, as well as the organization which is implementing the program or project. This is an advantage. But the disadvantage is lack of independence, because there is a hierarchy and there is lack of independence. And advantage is when the program implementers, they have credibility, then evaluation findings are credible within the organization, not outside the organization, and it develops an institutional memory. When we conduct, internal people conduct program evaluation, it develops institutional memory and it can follow up on evaluation recommendation. For example, I am the program implementer and I conducted the program evaluation. Therefore, the recommendations or else the outcomes I can only follow up. This is an advantage I have. But obviously, we have the disadvantage like organizational bias, because this program is implemented by my organization and I am working in this organization. Therefore, organizational bias may take place, and it is a burden of additional task, because program planning, program formulation, implementation you are only doing, and if you do the evaluation work also, then it will be an additional work. Sometimes the program implementers may not have the skills for evaluating the program. The program evaluation skills may not be possessed by the program implementers. So this is a disadvantage of internal evaluation. Coming to the external evaluation, there are advantages. If you conduct the program evaluation by external agency, they bring in specialized skills and new perspectives into the program. Therefore, the program evaluation will have some benefits out of it. And obviously, when external evaluation is being conducted, it will have some independence, and at the same time, it can be conducted objectively, and it is a facilitation of program accountability also. These are some of the advantages of external evaluation. Coming to the disadvantages, external evaluators usually they lack knowledge of the organization, because they are external, so they don't understand the internal intricacies of the organization, so they lack knowledge, and limited access to information, because they depend on whatever the internal people supply to them, the information. So they have limited access, lack of ability to follow up on the recommendation. External agency, they complete the evaluation, they give the evaluation report, but they cannot follow up the evaluation recommendations, and at the same time, external evaluation is expensive. Internal evaluation is cheap, but at the same time, it has no credibility, whereas external evaluation has credibility, but it is expensive. Then the next question is, what are the tools that we need to use? Whether we should use a quantitative data collection tool or a qualitative data collection tool? What are the advantages of quantitative methods and qualitative methods? Basically, the tools for data collection can be divided into three types. One is quantitative data collection tools, qualitative data collection tools, and mixed methods. In the quantitative data collection, again we have experimental and non-experimental. Within experimental, we have again between groups, within groups, and also in non-experimental also we have between groups and within groups. In case of qualitative data collection, the division is based on participation, whether you are participating in data collection or you are non-participating in data collection. Like we have observation study, participatory observation and non-participatory observation. We have case studies, we have focus group discussions, and in the mixed methods, we can use both quantitative tools as well as qualitative tools. Let us see the advantages and disadvantages of these two. Quantitative methods usually we can apply for large scale projects. When large scale projects are there, when we have data at baseline, needs assessment, formative studies, the data can be compared with the impact data at the end of summative evaluation data, then we can see the large scale impact of the project through quantitative methodology. It is not possible with the qualitative data collection tools. Another is quantitative tools always judge the cause and effect relation. If this is the incremental increase in economic viability of the project, or else the money returns to the stakeholders, then what are the causes and what are the effects? Always through quantitative methods, it may not be possible to bring out the changes that are taking place at the cutting edge, wherein qualitative data methodology can be of use. Qualitative methodologies help us to understand the context in which the program is taking place, the context in which a development program or project is taking place, and the complex problems and the relationship between the various objectives and its implementation can be understood through qualitative data collection methods like participatory observation, then case study, or else the focus group discussion. Then unintended consequences of a program or project sometimes we can get through the qualitative methodology. Examples are focus group discussion, for participant observation, or case study. But my advice would be we need to use judiciously the mix of both quantitative methods as well as qualitative methods in order to get the evaluation impact from all angles. So we need to have quantitative methodology at one side, and to supplement quantitative methodology we can apply qualitative methods. So basically we are using mixed methods or mixed method tools in evaluating the development programs and projects. These are the differences between quantitative methods and qualitative methods. Then the next question would be, what are the evaluation designs? Broadly, we can classify evaluation designs into two types of designs. One is pre versus post program evaluation. Second is with or without the program. We discussed in the beginning that during the formulation of the program, we conduct baseline studies. We conduct benchmark studies. Why we conduct them? In order to get the data before implementation of the program. That will be a design, that pre-programmed data design we have, and pre-programmed data we have, at what stage the stakeholders are there before the program, and immediately after the post program, that is after the program, we conduct a summative evaluation through which we get the data by comparing these survey results from present and past. We get what you called some edge that because of this program, this is the impact. But the problem here is many development programs and projects, they don't do a baseline study. They don't go for a benchmark study. They often depend on the stakeholders to recollect what was your income before this project. During the baseline study, we collect pre-project data or pre-program data, and at the end of the program, we collect post-project data and we compare. But the problem here is many development programs and projects, we don't have a baseline data. When it is available, sometimes it is not up to the mark, or else when it is not sufficient. So usually what the program evaluators they do is, they go to the stakeholder and they follow the recall method. They ask the respondents, what was the condition of this village before this program? And now they see what is the condition and they try to compare it. But this recall method has a bias because people tend to forget, memory loss or recall, sometimes it is not good. So always when we design the program with pre and post project or pre or post program evaluation, always it is advisable to have baseline data with us. They are called benchmarks with which we can compare. Then the second design is with or without project, because to overcome this disadvantage of recall or memory loss, then program implementers usually they put a control group. In one village, program was implemented in some same geographical area, and in another village, program was not implemented, and they see the results between the two villages. But the problem here is whether the control group has the same dimensions of the experimental group or not. We discussed in the quantitative methodology that experimental and non-experimental. Here we are doing experiment. In one village, we are implementing the program, that is an experiment. In the side-by-side village, we are not doing the program. It is not covered in the program and we are comparing. Usually we call it as control group and we are comparing with program village and without program village, or else we can call it as beneficiary and non-beneficiary. Beneficiaries are those who participated in the program, non-beneficiaries are those who are not participated. For example, one question was there on agriculture development. Krishi Vigyan Kendra, they conduct several programs. Krishi Vigyan Kendra beneficiaries, Krishi Vigyan Kendra non-beneficiaries, that is without project. But again, like quantitative and qualitative methodology, my advice would be to go both methods, a mixed method or a combination of pre and post project with and without program will yield us a good evaluation report. Then the next question is, when having understood different issues behind the evaluation, what are the broad steps in conducting an evaluation study? The first step is writing the evaluation proposal itself. We want to conduct an evaluation study, so we need to write an evaluation proposal which includes what is the need for this evaluation study, indicating economic, technical, social related issues, environmental related issues, sustainability related issues. That signifies the need for this program or need for this program evaluation. Then what are the evaluation questions? This we can call as research questions. Research questions for evaluations and converting research questions into research objectives. Once research objectives are formulated, then we go for evaluation frameworks. Internationally, Bennett's hierarchy and logic framework approaches are the accepted frameworks for conducting evaluation studies. So we need to adopt either of it. In both of them, we will evaluate inputs, outputs, and outcomes at different levels. And the last one is the budget. How much budget is required to conduct this evaluation? Usually, at the program planning stage itself, the program formulation stage itself, it is advisable to have a budget for evaluation. It is because evaluation is the third important component of program planning cycle. So at the program formulation itself, let us have budget for the program evaluation. Therefore, we can include it in the proposal so that it can be easily sanctioned. Then the designing and approval of evaluation instrument, either survey instrument, a questionnaire or interview schedule. Then clearance of institute ethical committees. Usually in evaluation studies, human subjects are involved. We talk to the stakeholders, they are human beings, they are the beneficiaries of the program, or a control group is a non-beneficiary of the program. But in order to follow the ethical standards, we need to get clearance of Institute Human Ethics Committee clearance. Many times in many universities, organizations, we don't have these committees. That is a big lacuna in program evaluation. Then the data entry, analysis, then report writing. And usually when we write report, there are two reports are available. One is a short report for the sake of policymakers, those who don't have time to read the full report. And obviously we can write a full report for the sake of reference, for the sake of further reference by the policymakers, a short report or a larger report, or else in the long report itself we can put an extended summary. Abstract followed by an extended summary so that it can cater to the different stakeholders of your evaluation results. Once we discussed about different steps involved in program evaluation, we discussed that there are two frameworks. One is a Bennett's hierarchy framework, another is a logic framework approach. One is developed, Bennett's hierarchy was developed by United States Department of Agriculture. They used it extensively, whereas logic framework approach was developed by World Bank and they used it in evaluation of World Bank programs. In both the frameworks, whether it is a Bennett's hierarchy or it is a logic framework approach, both are comprehensive frameworks covering inputs, outputs, and outcomes. Both provide a process by examining the chain of means. When we are implementing a program or project, it is a chain. It is a chain of events, what actions, because when we are investing some money, investing some human resources, they do some actions. So what actions are there in the program, and with those actions, what ends are achieved? What ends means the results of these actions. Some money is invested, some human resources are invested, what actions they took and what are the end results through different levels. When we see the Bennett's hierarchy, it is a 7-level hierarchy. Starting bottom to and inputs to outputs or the end results. It is described in 7 levels. Bennett's hierarchy provides a process by examining the chain of means. Chain of means means what we do with the resources, what we do with the money, what we do with the human resources, and the ends, the results of your actions. You conduct some actions in the program implementation and you will see the results through 7 levels. For example, evaluation of a training workshop. In several organizations, several universities, we conduct workshops on training programs. By using Bennett's hierarchy evaluation, you can evaluate the training workshop itself. For example, at level 1, inputs. What are the inputs used for the training workshop? For instance, human resources, how many participants came, how many resource persons participated in the training workshop, what was the money spent by both participants as well as training organizers, and who are involved, who are the stakeholders, what are their roles. All these are evaluated at level 1 called inputs. The second is level 2 is activities, training activities. How many classes, how many training sessions were conducted, how many of them are theoretical courses, theoretical sessions, how many of them are practical sessions, how many of them total number of hours, whether a training manual was produced or not, so on and so forth. Then level 3 is participation. Who participated and how many? How many sessions were conducted, external resources, internal resources, and what was the time allocation between them, etc. Then the reaction is how participants reacted to this program. Usually before training program and after training program, we collect data from the participants about the program and to see the knowledge gained by the participants because of this program. They are the reactions of the program. Then at the level 5, we see knowledge, attitude, skill, practice changes, etc. in terms of knowledge. For example, objective is to change in the knowledge, then what is the change? Objective is to impart skill, what is the change in the skill? And then level 6 is the practice. Ultimately, when knowledge, attitude and skills are changed, then obviously it results in behavioral change. Then from behavioral change to end results, at the end results, the advice is to imply both qualitative and quantitative. Because in the end results, we see the long-term goals achieved by this training program, then we can apply some qualitative methodology. So this is in brief about the Bennett's hierarchy. Similarly, logic framework approach, evaluate the inputs used, the outputs used and the outcomes, and in the outputs and outcomes also we can further divide them into short-term, medium-term and long-term outputs or outcomes. Then in logic framework approach, there is one more indicator is objectively verifiable indicators and the means of verification. For instance, this is the change in the knowledge. The change in knowledge is objectively verifiable or not, and through means. What means? We will employ a knowledge test. Through knowledge test, we will try to measure the knowledge change in the participants. Then at the end, there are some challenges in program evaluation. Evaluation field is evolving. Evaluation itself is evolving as a sub-branch in development studies, as a sub-discipline in the development studies with huge job opportunities in evaluation and impact assessment. But there are some deficiencies or challenges for program evaluation. For example, most of the time, evaluators, they use descriptive methodologies or else one-shot case studies, because this will not bring in the all perspectives of the program or a project. My advice would be to use a tool like Bennett's hierarchy or a logic framework approach so that inputs, outputs and outcomes and their relations can be captured and we can have a better evaluation report. We should not use simple descriptive tools as well as a one-shot case studies. And lack of precise, straight assessment methods. Lack of precise and straight assessment methods revealing the cause-effect relationship. For example, do farmers who attend trainings adopt new technologies than the earlier, that is, they don't attend the training program? There are two groups of farmers. One farmer attending the training program, whether they are adopting the new technologies because of this training program. If we can reveal this, then we can say that our training program is effective and our evaluation study is effective. And another major challenge in evaluation is its difficulty in establishing a control group. While discussing the approaches of evaluation, we thought that control group, with and without, with participation of beneficiaries, without participation, we call them as control group. It is difficult to have a similar, geographically similar, technically similar, culturally similar, and socio indicator wise also similar population to compare. It is difficult to establish the control groups. And last one is inadequate baseline data on impact indicators, because many times we neglect baseline studies and benchmark studies, therefore inadequate baseline data. So dear learners, the key points that we discussed in this presentation are: evaluation has been neglected and mistakenly seen as a fault finding mechanism. Evaluation of programs and projects is a quite neglected area of operation, and it is mistakenly seen as a fault finding mechanism. Rather, we need to see it as a learning process. We need to see evaluation as a learning process, and by this learning process we can learn from our mistakes so that we can build a better future. Second is, every development professional like you should have the competency to evaluate development programs and projects, because this is expected from you as a development professional, not only to what you called, you are implementing the development program, you are formulating the development program, and if you have the competency to evaluate, obviously it will be a multitasking ability, plus we have job prospects in this area. And the last is choosing an appropriate evaluation design, evaluation tool and methods will help us to collect a sound data, analyze it properly, and write a good report. Thank you so much.